On this episode of the Divination for Liberation Podcast, shame is such a good repellent. It's so good. It's like an electric fence and barbed wire. Whatever feeling is inside of that, you won't go near it. Just know that shame is saying, hey, you're on the cusp of becoming aware of something that you have had to hide from yourself in order to survive. And when you become aware of that thing, when you remove that emotion from the list of taboo things that you can't deal with, that capitalism penalizes you for addressing, that white supremacy treats you like a threat for feeling, that patriarchy responds violently for you expressing. Once you know it, you can't unknow it. Hi, it's Dana, and I'm here with your divination for the full moon in Sidereal, Sagittarius. The 2026 Sidereal Astrology Guide says, realizing beliefs about caretaking. Break down. If you can't hold it, let it hold you. Let it carry you. When you've done all that you know. Okay, so I'm so glad to not be focused on Taurus. Let's clap it up. Let's give it up one time for the sky. Even though Mars is still there and it's wreaking havoc, I got to post on my Instagram and threads talking about it. And I am not going to give that shenanigan inducing sign any more of my time and energy. Okay. We've moved on to mutable. Mutable signs are Pisces, where Saturn is, Gemini, where the sun is, Sagittarius, where the moon is, and Virgo, where nothing is. Mutable signs are about trust. They're asking us, how do we know what we know? Which is why at this full moon, we are realizing our beliefs about caretaking. There are two things going on in the sky that are offering kind of like a main backdrop and theme that is going to permeate the way that we experience all of the astrology pretty much through the rest of the year, but let's just say through November, because November is like things start to switch up in a really major way. Won't talk about it now, we'll talk about it then. The two things that are happening in the sky that are this major backdrop is that Saturn is in Pisces and Jupiter is in Cancer, and they are trine. Trine means reinforcement. What is the trine between Saturn and Jupiter reinforcing? It's reality and our pattern recognition. So it's kind of saying the patterns that you recognize are being reinforced by the reality that you're experiencing. Saturn in Pisces says we are connecting the dots that shape reality. So we're not collecting data. We're not making spreadsheets. We're not looking to the courts. We're not, making ourselves completely subservient to somebody's ego. Pisces is about the sound of silence. What is the sound that the silence makes? It's what's left out when someone is speaking explicitly. It is what's not being named that we have very clear evidence for. I cannot help but to continue to think about the way that Donald Trump is a pathological liar, a malignant narcissist who literally lies every single time he opens his mouth, and we are acting like that's not happening. If you have sidereal Pisces placements, this is your norm. This has been your life. Your life has been being the one that intensely and viscerally and acutely feels and recognizes the pattern of things that everybody else is either too stupid to recognize, too narcissistic to name, or just ignorant in the most general sense, right? There's a genius to Pisces that can definitely border on religious psychosis. And that's really a whole other conversation about the prevalence of religious psychosis right now, whether it is Christians, whether it is the MAGA cult, or whether it is the AI cult, whether it is, I think that people who get dependent on AI chatbots are caught in a cult of their own. And so, you know, dealing with folks who are dependent on chatbots, it's their girlfriend, it's their therapist, it's telling them that they're a genius and all of this stuff. It's really leaving a cult, right? Another conversation for another day. But there's this way that Pisces placements and transits highlight the individual and collective experience of hearing what is not said, feeling what is not expressed, and seeing what is not shown. And so Saturn, the planet of reality that concretizes and makes things real, is saying, if you want to know what's real, they're not going to tell you. They're not going to say it with words. They're not going to express it explicitly. Sometimes they're going to intentionally hide it from you. And so if you want to know what's real, you've got to connect the dots, okay? Jupiter in Cancer came along, it returned June 1st, and that is attuning to my emotions and body to understand. So the reference point is not your religion. The reference point is not the books you read. The reference point is not what an authority figure told us, and this is collectively. The reference point is our body, our bodily functions, and our feelings. Jupiter takes a year or so to go through one sign, and it takes 12 years to go through all 12 signs. In that 12-year period, we are having enough experiences to recognize a pattern. That's what Jupiter is. Jupiter says, okay, after I've gone through all 12 signs, now you got enough to make a pattern. First happens around 11 and 12 years old. Yes, now you don't just take what's told to you. Now you just don't take, what you've been indoctrinated with necessarily. Or maybe that's a time where the indoctrination really takes root, right? That the environment is reinforcing patterns in this way to give you a belief system. When we have Saturn and Pisces under this sky, when we have the moon full in Sagittarius and the sun in Gemini creating this full moon, we're continuing this work of questioning our belief systems. And because the ruler of this moon is Jupiter in Cancer, we are questioning and realizing our beliefs about being taken care of. One last thing I want to say about the Saturn Jupiter trine is this, and I got some notes. Let's see. Which ones do I want to read here? Using our bodies, feelings, and needs to make sense of things. The reference point is our inner emotional world. Jupiter in Cancer is challenging us to be more attentive to ourselves, right? Or it is highlighting the ways that we are over attentive to our own inner emotional world and ignoring everybody else's. More on that when we get to these eclipses in Cancer and Capricorn in a couple months. Okay, so that's reinforcing this work of connecting the dots to shape reality. This is where the religious psychosis gets really scary to me, because if you're already operating from a place of skepticism, Jupiter in Cancer comes along to magnify the intensity of your inner emotional world and highlight patterns that may or may not be there. Remember, Jupiter's job is to figure out what's going on without things having to be made explicit. Or if you have Pisces placements, you grew up in an environment where you had to figure out what was going on without things being made explicit to you. So we are collectively experiencing conditions where we have to figure out what's going on under circumstances where things are not being made explicit to us. And Jupiter in Cancer is saying revolution begins in the body. The change you seek is a change in relationship to your emotions. The revolution you seek requires you to become more emotionally available to yourself and the people in your life and the world. Emotional availability is really about the the spectrum of emotions that we have access to. Right now, because we are in a society that is so overwhelmingly defined by lies, the emotion that we're all reaching for is skepticism and suspicion. This is why the religious psychosis is so intense. This is why people are so, intense about the conspiracies, and they're looking for patterns everywhere, even when there isn't a pattern, right? It's because we're swimming in lies. We're swimming in lies. Okay, let's move on. Realizing my beliefs about being taken care of. I want to talk about, and I think that this is something important to talk about when we have this much mutable going on. And I think it's our task when we have a sky that looks like right now. When we talk about religion and we talk about belief systems, most people are thinking church, the masjid, right? I hope I said that right. The temple. They're thinking of these institutions of religion with clear hierarchies and rituals that are mm, mystical, right? That are imbued with like this deep meaning. And you have to go to a building and gather with people to do them. But if we're realizing beliefs about being taken care of, we need to start with the religion that is the religion of all religions. And it's a four-headed beast: capitalism, white supremacy, patriarchy, and imperialism. Each of these religions' core tenet is about who has entitlement to care and who doesn't. How are the resources of a society valued, organized, and distributed to reinforce a group's entitlement to care? And so the beliefs that you have about being taken care of are indoctrinated by capitalists and capitalism. The beliefs that you have about being taken care of are absolutely informed, shaped, and determined by imperialism. It's absolutely informed and shaped by white supremacy. Because if you don't conform to these systems, you won't be taken care of. Period. If you don't treat whiteness like God Almighty, you're going to be hungry or you're going to be dead. If you don't conform to the indoctrination of capitalism, you will starve. And so realizing our beliefs, yes, are personal, and we're going to get there. But I want to start with these beliefs being the religion and the four-headed beast of capitalism, white supremacy, patriarchy, and imperialism that our parents were indoctrinated into. And as soon as we're born, they do the work of passing on the indoctrination. If there's a cult, that's the cult. How do we get out of it? The same way somebody would get out of a cult. Another conversation for another day. I just want to read a couple of my notes here. Capitalism is the ideology, the religion, and the material reality that has determined our beliefs about being taken care of. Who is worthy of care? Who is deserving? Who isn't worthy and deserving of care? What must you be willing to do in order to receive care? And I mean this in a collective sense on a societal level, but I also mean it in the sense of what have your life experiences and relationships taught you that you need to be willing to do in order to receive care? All work is care work. I feel like I've said a lot of things today, but in general, but I think the thing that is so relevant and important to bringing about the societal changes that we're seeking is this understanding that all work is care work and all money is caretaking tokens. It's just a matter of who are you taking care of with your work? When you exert labor, when you spend your time, who are you taking care of? Right? We're all taking care of capitalists. We're all taking care of Donald Trump and Elon Musk. I don't care if you work for McDonald's, Deloitte and Touche, the Dollar Tree, or the San Diego public school system. You work to take care of Donald Trump and his family, and you work to take care of Elon Musk. Because when you pay taxes, SpaceX is getting that contract from the money that you worked for. Donald Trump is enriching himself and pocketing all of the caretaking tokens. He's hoarding them for his own comfort. All work is care work. I don't care what your title is. I don't care how many degrees you have. I don't care what letter is behind your name or not. All work is care work. And it just so happens that we are all taking care of capitalists so that they can continue their imperialist exploits all over the world. Israel, that's the recipient of your care work. Your caretaking tokens that you work for, that you give to the government so that they can use to invest in infrastructure, so they can use to take care of society and disabled people and those who cannot work, it's going to Israel. It's going to the weapons manufacturers so that they can bomb Israel, or rather, so Israel can bomb Iran and Lebanon, so that the United States government can bomb Iran, Syria, whoever's the target of the day. That's where your caretaking tokens are going. Yet capitalism keeps us policing each other. Every single day, we're debating who is deserving of care and who isn't deserving of care. And we create these elaborate rules and bureaucracies to say, okay, well, if you want care, you have to. If you want to be the recipient of romantic love, you better. If you want health care, you better. If you want to be in community, you better. And yes, there need to be rules, but we are continually asking people to comply in ways that capitalism, white supremacy, patriarchy, and imperialism make almost impossible for some people and actually impossible for most people. We're the most lonely that we've ever been. We're the most isolated that we've ever been. And we keep having these think pieces and podcast episodes and debates on social media. And we say to each other, well, if you would just be a different person, you too would be deserving of care. If you would just comply with the expectations of capitalism, if you would just be a better man in patriarchy, if you would just be a better wife in patriarchy, then you would be deserving of care. If you comply with the rules of white supremacy, then you would be deserving of care. Why don't you just comply? Why don't you just do what they tell you to do? And then maybe you'd get the care that you deserve. Realizing beliefs about being taken care of requires us to name our belief systems. And if we are unwilling to name our belief systems, then we are in a cult. Because there's a fine line between a belief system and reality. And most of the resistance to naming capitalism is because people think capitalism is reality and not a belief system. Capitalism was imagined in somebody's mind. It was pieced together in somebody's imagination. So it's as real as anything else that you or I could dream of, anything else you or I could imagine, anything else anyone else could imagine and has written about and lived for centuries. Capitalism is not the peak of human evolution. It's actually a system that is born out of the desire to dominate and hoard and consume until there's nothing left. Because at what point is enough money enough money? Like seriously. If money is caretaking tokens, because that's what you use it for. You use it to buy the labor, buy the resources, and pay people to take care of you. That's what we use money for. You get your money and you go and you pay somebody to grow your food for you, package it up, and put it in the grocery store and sell it to you. You pay the health insurance company to not take care of you when you get sick. And they ask you for more money, even though you already paid them money. And then they tell you, no, they can't give you the money that you gave them so that you could be taken care of when you got sick. You use your caretaking tokens to pay somebody to cook your food for you. You go to the dry cleaners and you use your caretaking tokens for somebody to care for your clothes. You use your caretaking tokens to pay somebody to make your shoes for you, to grow cotton for you. All work is care work and all money is caretaking tokens. We got to get that in our heads so that we can stop having these really ridiculous debates about who's deserving of how much money. Because what you're really saying is that, oh, I'm sorry, you don't work hard enough to have caretaking tokens. So you only get this much care, just a little bit. That's all the care you deserve. Maybe if you work harder, you'd be deserving of more care. Why is work correlated to our deservingness to receive care? Why is labor and work the thing that determines how much care you're deserving of and not for everybody? Only for some people. Some people can lie all day and fall asleep at work and make things up and throw tantrums. And somehow they're deserving of all of the caretaking tokens and all of the care. Meanwhile, you're over here dealing with imposter syndrome, wondering how you can be a better person so that maybe you'd be deserving of care. This is not me advocating for people to be a-holes, okay? I'm not. However, what I am saying is that you are deserving of care because you are born. And your expectations and your entitlement to receiving care has been abused and neglected out of you. One of, I think, the more insidious facts about capitalism is that it invisibilizes, it makes neglect invisible and it normalizes neglect. Maybe if we reframe the question from who is deserving of care to who is deserving of neglect, maybe we can have a better conversation. Who's deserving of neglect? Who's deserving of not having enough to eat? Which one of us shall be having instability in our housing? Who should we uh uh prevent from getting health care? Come on, let's make our list. Who's on the list? Who should starve? Who should never ever receive affectionate touch? Come on, make your list. Who you putting on it? Who goes on the list of people who should never ever have enough food? I'll wait. Realizing beliefs about being taken care of. There are some of you listening right now who are shuddering and shivering at the words being taken care of. There are some of you who have no idea what I'm talking about because this could not possibly be relevant to you. But one thing that I know for sure, nobody listening to this podcast can go to sleep when they're tired. Not one person. Because you don't own your own time. Your body's clock is irrelevant. So you're not free. You aren't even allowed the most basic care, which is to be able to rest when you're tired, to be able to listen and be attentive to your body, to even be able to hear it without it being drowned out in a cacophony of, of stock expectations. We got to sell this much today. You can't even hear your own body enough for to know when it's telling you you're tired. Because if you were to really hear it, you'd have to work out a contradiction. Why am I not allowed to sleep when I'm tired? If I wake up in the morning and I'm just having a rough day and I need a couple more hours of sleep, sorry, starvation, homelessness, you're fired. Make it make sense. This is such a basic conversation to me, right? Like this is such a basic conversation, but it's not one we're having. Like we have all of these convoluted political things and like what Cancer and mind you, at this full moon, we got Jupiter in Cancer, which is ruling the full moon. We got Mercury in Cancer, which is stationary retrograde, and we've got Venus in Cancer. This is just the beginning of a very long period of sidereal Cancer transits. We've got an eclipse in Cancer coming up on August 12th. Mars and Jupiter will be traveling together the entirety of October and half of September in Cancer. Mars will be retrograde in Cancer. It enters its shadow in November, October, I think. Cancer is the feeler. Its ideal is to have its needs and feelings taken seriously. Some of you all take your needs and feelings too seriously. Another conversation for another day. Collectively, we don't take our needs and feelings seriously enough. And that is the problem. One of the things I respect about Cancer is the entitlement to care and the refusal to stomach discomfort and silence themselves. When Cancer is in distress and upset, they're going to tell you. Meanwhile, the rest of us are embarrassed when we're in grief. We don't do anger. We can't even tell when we're hungry because we've been ignored into neglecting ourselves and our bodies. So, this full moon, where we're realizing beliefs about being taken care of, we need to get to some fundamentals. Can you go to sleep when you're tired? Can you feel your hunger? Or have European beauty standards caused you to distrust the hunger signals your body sends you, leading you into a spiral of shame? Let's pull some cards.
Rest your aching heart in my hands. Ride this wave of grief where it lands. Lay your softness right here.
It's time for advice from the People's Oracle. Let's follow up with Renee, who I gave advice to in the last episode. They wrote in giving me some feedback and insight on what I shared. First, thank you for choosing my question and for answering it so thoroughly. Pretty much everything you mentioned was on point. Caretaking is huge in my life as I play caretaker for so many of my family members, including my spouse. You hit the nail on the head when you mentioned that this was likely why I tried to leave and why I continue to feel like leaving. It's definitely very one sided, and I am exhausted of always having to be everything to everyone. In my marriage, there's absolutely mutual dependency when it comes to finances, and because we are raising kids together who are still very young. Financially, I am not able to leave, or else it would throw our family into an entire tailspin. He has to work and I also work, but we've really been scraping by. So even though we have so many issues in our relationship, for practical reasons, the status quo always remains. Renee shared a lot more, which I won't go into here, but I just want to say that I hope my advice was helpful to you. And for anybody else who's considering writing in to receive advice from me, it's very clear that the difficulties that we have in our interpersonal relationships are not merely due to personal shortcomings, healing that we have to do. Yes, that is important. And I think the benefit of getting advice based on your birth chart helps us to name things in a very precise way and giving tips and tools that are catered to how your life works. However, capitalism is the issue. White supremacy is the issue. Both of these are belief systems and structures that burden the individual with things that are truly communal responsibilities. Divination for liberation, the liberation part means a collective condition of abundance, materially, emotionally, spiritually, physically. Abundance is not for one person because then they're hoarding it. And so, the liberation that I hope to offer with the advice that I give here on the podcast is one, to alleviate some of the pressure that we put on ourselves to solve problems that require collective solutions, but also to give you that insight that can be very specific to the way that your life works and the circumstances that you're dealing with. All right, let us move on to this episode's installment of Advice from the People's Oracle. We've got Yasmin writing in from Augusta, Georgia. What advice do you have for someone stuck in a cycle? How do you find rhythm in the madness? I was a binge drinker for 5 years, and starting this year, I was sober from alcohol for only 5 months. before having a drink again. I keep making changes to my lifestyle for only about 3 to 4 weeks. Then I am back to old habits like overconsumption of all forms of media, disordered eating, and lack of exercise. I have learned that what brings me joy is cooking, movement, furthering my spiritual journey. However, when I escape from my reality, there is no time for me to do these things I truly enjoy. I feel like I am a bystander to my life, just watching life pass me by. Well, congratulations on your 5 months of sobriety. Let's clap it up for Yasmin. Something that really stood out to me, and this is before I get to your chart. I'm gonna tie it in though. Something that really stood out to me in your request here, you said, I keep making changes to my lifestyle for only about 3 to 4 weeks. Then I am back to old habits like overconsumption, etc. Assuming that you are assigned female at birth, that 3 to 4 weeks to me sounds like a menstrual cycle. It sounds like your luteal phase is beating your booty. And I would wonder if some of the struggles you're having are hormonal, if they are related to some type of crash that's happening in your luteal phase. And also, just looking at your chart, I also wonder if you have any thyroid issues that could be contributing to the hormonal issues that seem to be implied by this 3 to 4 week cycle. More directly to the chart, we've got another person here who is Venus dominant. Venus is belonging. It is, how do I find things in common with other people so that I can connect? Venus says I need to conceal my differences and magnify the commonalities so that people can accept me, so that people won't reject me, so that people won't hurt me. When Venus is as strong as it is in your birth chart, I know that you have internalized unrealistic expectations for yourself. What are the barriers you have internalized to making connections with other people? When there's this much Taurus going on and Mars in Libra, I'm most certain it's that these expectations of perfection are unrealistic. You are quite hard on yourself. You also have a lot of Capricorn going on here. Capricorn is the caretaker, and Capricorn is often parentified and burdened with being an emotional caretaker of their parent. This is all happening in this condition where there is no water in your birth chart. I mean, zero. No Scorpio, no Cancer, no Pisces. No water in a birth chart means emotional invisibility. It means when you were sending out distress signals through your body language, through your behavior, through changes in your routine, nobody noticed. They went ignored. Nobody was paying attention to you emotionally. And so now, as an adult, you don't have the tools that you need to pay attention to yourself emotionally. When things get overwhelming for you, it feels like anxiety. It feels unbearable because nobody never ever sat with you while you were in distress, teaching you how to tolerate the distress long enough to let it ebb and flow and meet the need that it was asking for. So much of your work in this season, Yasmin, is becoming more emotionally available to yourself. Your homework is to identify the emotions that are off limits for you. What are the feelings that you don't do, that you don't deal with? And this is how you're going to do it. When you get to that 3 to 4 week window or whatever it is where you feel like reaching for something, and sometimes you find yourself doing it before you know that you're doing it. So I get that this might not work for those instances. But when you're reaching for snacks or you're reaching for a drink, I want you to pick up your phone and I want you to set the timer for 5 minutes. And I want you to sit there and I want you to be with your feelings. I want you to say to yourself, oh, Yasmin, what's going on? It looks like you're really having a hard time. What are you feeling? What's bothering you? Don't pressure yourself to answer. Just give that very motherly and attentive voice to yourself in that 5 minutes. Maybe you find a song that you can play that reflects how you're feeling. Maybe you write in your journal. Maybe you cuss. Maybe you jump. Maybe you look in the mirror and pull your hair. Whatever it is, Express those feelings. And then when that 5 minutes is up, maybe you still feel like drinking. Maybe you still feel like scrolling, and that's okay. What we really need is community to deal with dependency, right? What we really need is community. And so maybe that might be an answer for you that you find in some way. But I just imagine that with your chart, you just have such high expectations of yourself and other people, quite frankly, that nobody can really meet them. And so, what are the emotions that you are learning to increase your tolerance for in a way that leads to increasing emotional availability to yourself, to the people in your life, and to your life? If you want to receive advice from the People's Oracle, go down to that description and click the link and put in your request. I'm thoroughly enjoying this segment, and we'll be back on the next episode with more. All right. I'm back with tarot. We're going to pull some cards to see what wisdom and insight is available for us at this full moon in Sidereal Sagittarius, where we are realizing beliefs about being taken care of. On the bottom here, we have the Lover's card. Honestly, I could probably count on maybe one or two fingers the amount of times that the Lover's card has come up and it's referred to romantic love or love in any capacity. That's not to say that that's not what the card means. Maybe in your own tarot practice, it has that association. But for me, the Lovers is often about the duality of choice, particularly choice that is inevitable. I often imagine the Lovers as a fork in the road where it seems like you have a choice, but you really don't. There's a song I wrote. Oh man, I wish I could remember the lyrics right now. But I talk about there being two pathways, and one pathway is familiar. And a lot of times when a pathway is familiar, we're doing it unconsciously. And so the Lover's card can represent a period of coming into awareness or making conscious habits or choices that you continually make. And there's something disruptive about the awareness of it that makes it really hard to continue going down that path. It makes it really hard to continue making that choice that you know doesn't serve your well-being. It doesn't serve your health, your it doesn't serve you mentally or spiritually or emotionally. There was something in it for you before. That's why you made the choice. I think at this full moon, what's in it for you is you can ignore yourself emotionally on that path. You can ignore what your body is telling you it really needs. That path is giving you a pacifier to numb you because you learned a long time ago that when you are angry, there's punishment. And when you are sad, you're being ignored. So that feels like the path of emotional alienation, and maybe it really is, right? That if you don't take this old path, it's nothing good for you. But the Lovers is saying you don't really have a choice. You're too aware of your own patterns to keep making this old choice, even though the new path is full of uncertainty. Even though it feels like if you take this path, nobody's coming with you, you're going to be by yourself, you're going to be lonely, you're going to experience rejection. You might be punished in some way, but you know too much to go the old way. Let's see what else we've got. We've got the 5 of Cups and we've got Judgment. Whew. The 5 of Cups is a card of emotional disappointment. It's a card of things not working out the way that you want them to. The 5 of Cups is also often a permission slip to feel things that you historically have not been allowed to feel. What feelings have you historically not been allowed to feel? Mm. What's the first time you can remember receiving the message that that emotion was not allowed in your house? That there was no room for you to feel that feeling and remain connected to the people taking care of you? When was the first time you had to choose between receiving the attention and the positive regard of your caregivers and feeling what you really feel? What is that feeling? I think that there's something in this judgment card. I often think of it as like a revival of something. When you look in this card, it's almost feels like a seance or a conjuring or some type of ritual where they're trying to bring back to life a spirit or bring back to life something. Ooh, when we have a lot of Cancer transits, one of the ways I like to talk about them is how it's a time where we are reclaiming our capacity to cry for help. When I talk about capitalism normalizing neglect and us making very explicit choices about who we will neglect as a society and how we will neglect them, the way that we do that is ignoring their cries for help. And furthermore, we might hear their cries for help, but we will make it the thing that disqualifies them from care. This is a societal level thing. It is inherent to the culture of capitalism, white supremacy, and imperialism that when you are at your most vulnerable, when all you literally have is your cry, you will be left alone until you get the message that nobody is coming. How at this full moon are we reviving, bringing back to life our capacity to cry for help? What is the attentiveness? A lot of times there are feelings in the way of other feelings. Shame is such a good repellent. It's so good. So much so that when we are in a period of our lives that we are just on the cusp of becoming aware of something that's been repressed and suppressed by neglect, we'll have dreams with themes that bring up incredible shame. We'll have dreams about taboo topics because that emotion has been relegated to the taboo for you. So shame is this covering that conceals from us the reality of our own inner emotional world. It's like an electric fence and barbed wire. Whatever feeling is inside of that, you won't go near it. I encourage you to pay attention to your dreams. Are there things happening in your dreams that bring you shame that you would be embarrassed for anyone to know? That you'd be embarrassed for anyone to see? Just know that shame is saying, "Hey, you're on the cusp of becoming aware of something that you have had to hide from yourself in order to survive." And when you become aware of that thing, when you remove that emotion from the list of taboo things that you can't deal with, that capitalism penalizes you for addressing, that white supremacy treats you like a threat for feeling, that patriarchy responds violently for you expressing, once you know it, you can't unknow it. That's what the Lover's card says. And so maybe you need a little bit of permission in this Five of Cups to deal with the reality of your internal emotional world, because it is the most accurate tool you have for making sense of how the external world is affecting you. This Judgment card, I think, is truly speaking to us about the rigor and the effort and the focus that's required to reclaim our capacity to cry for help. Some of us pacify our cry for help with substances. We pacify our cries for help with alcohol, with weed, and guess what? That is okay. Because if you don't have the tools to be with yourself emotionally, you don't even know what to do. For so many of us, emotions don't even register as feelings because the judgment prevents us from even getting there. We're already disappointed in ourselves. We're already ashamed, or we're just angry. And so we can't get to the nugget. We can't get to the nugget of the fear and the uncertainty. Cancer teaches us and gives us the opportunity to develop the courage to be witnessed feeling. And so the collective conditions of this sky are giving us the opportunity. It's saying, will you allow yourself to be witnessed feeling? That's all I have for today. Thank you for tuning in to the Divination for Liberation podcast. I am your host, Dana Lynn Knuckles. I'll be back in a couple of weeks when we will have a new moon in Sidereal Gemini. Make sure you are checking the wastewater map that I drop in the description of this podcast episode so that you can keep track of where there are hot spots with COVID. I think there's still one in Central Texas and Guam, but overall, we're still at a low. In the meantime, in between time, make sure you're taking care of yourself. Two announcements. One, the Divination for Liberation Birthday Club is back. This is a group reading where four of us come together and I divine everybody's charts, outlining the major themes for your personal year. And then you get to ask me a couple of questions that I answer looking at your chart. Brought it back in June and it was wonderful. I really loved it. You'll get a copy of your chart, a chance to ask me questions, and you will get access to the video and audio recording afterwards. And you just might make some friends. Announcement number two, um, July 7th, I will be going live in the Divination for Liberation Podia community. Paying members, I'll be on Zoom, and I will be interpreting the moon through all 12 sidereal signs. Whenever there are Cancer transits, it is activating your moon. Your moon is telling the story of how your distress was responded to. When you expressed and gave off those distress signals, how was it responded to? What was the environment that your capacity to meet your own needs were met in? That's what we're going to be talking about, and the interpretations I'll be giving on Zoom, July 7th. This is going to arm you with some personal information to help you navigate this season of Cancer transits, which, like I said, will take us mostly through the end of the year and pick back up in the spring actually February of 2027, Mars goes back into Cancer around the same time as the eclipses. Anyways, when you support this podcast with your donation beginning at $6, this is the type of stuff that you get access to on top of making sure that when you come back in a couple of weeks for a new episode of the Divination for Liberation podcast, it is here. Finally, if you don't know, I offer one-on-one readings. The link is in the description. Would you like a tarot reading? Would you like to understand how this sky and all the stuff I just talked about affected you personally? In the description. And I offer readings for friends. If you find yourself not being able to afford a one-on-one reading, get a friend. Split the cost and come together. It's a two-person reading. I'll specifically drop the link for that in the description as well. You all take care of yourselves. Bye.